Continuing on with the Modern Day book by Reverend Susan MeeLing. I wrote it, put it together. So going to page 60. Due to my discussions with the very nice males and one particular female at the Criminal Investigation Division, CID, at Joint Base Lewis, or JBSA. Oh wait, nope, my mistake. Yes, because it wasn't until JBSA that I had met with a female agent, my mistake. So due to the discussions that I had with the nice males at the Criminal Investigation Division, or CID, at Joint Base Lewis McChord, also known as JBLM, in Tacoma, Washington, who pointed me in the direction to contact the Pentagon, and then the Tacoma Police pointing me in the direction to contact the FBI, or the Federal Bureau of Investigation. My letters began in reference to initially discuss my Medal of Honor art project, though my letters inevitably began to discuss other aspects, such as when I landed at the bottom of the ocean, in various locations, among other aspects in my first two books, Finding a Silver Lining by Susan MeeLing and Finding the Silver Lining by Susan MeeLing. I eventually made my way back to the state of Texas after my son joined the United States of America's Army, or Armed Forces Army branch. Though he chaptered out, I'm still proud of him for trying to go to the Army to better himself. However, I know he is much smarter than I am, and he is capable of intelligence, which has always had me standing in awe of him, because he must not be proud of him. Just like proud of my daughter. She was smart, like when I was able to be around her. And just as I was in awe of his my daughter's intelligence level. After finding the rental house in Lakewood from an Air Force sergeant, I think he was an E7, and his wife through formilitaryonly.com, and sending information in reference to apply to then move in, I saw a sign for the Calvary Cemetery. I wanted to walk through the area to clear my thoughts, as so many aspects were moving too fast for my thoughts to process, and though my now ex-boyfriend Jesse Leroy Hoover Jr. would not enter the area of the cemetery, I felt at ease walking through the fields. Really quickly to pause, Jesse Leroy Hoover Jr. was supposed to send his DD-214 to Dwayne and Birgit, and if he chose not to, and or, Dwayne having been in the Air Force for the United States of America's Armed Forces, I don't think it takes a head injury to figure out, well, I wouldn't know about Lackland Air Force Base not being where the Air Force officers go to train for basic. He probably would. He might hypothetically know where that is. For the Air Force. Maybe. I mean, he's only in the Air Force in like an E7. Been in a while. Maybe, just maybe, somebody in the Air Force knows where Air Force officers go to Air Force basic training for officers. Maybe. I could be wrong, but I think that Air Force guys know where officers go for training for the Air Force to be officers. Just throwing that out there, cherubim. Shouldn't take a head injury to figure that out. However, going back to the book, having grown up in Old Tenent Presbyterian Church in Tenent, New Jersey, and being around the history of that church, as well as the square mile cemetery surrounding the church, once used as a hospital during the Revolutionary War, where General George Washington's private latrine is out back behind, I'll go into that. I felt comfortable and a sense of solace when meandering along my way through the paths. As I walked and as felt correct for me to go, I stumbled into the section of the oldest portion of the cemetery grounds after walking through the Catholic section, of which I felt, though on the other side of the chain link fence there might have been somebody walking by trying to sneak a peek as to what I was doing. There, a knee-high marker had caught my attention amongst the multiple markers throughout all of the grounds, and I walked towards that particular one. As I got closer, I did clear off that marker and found a Medal of Honor recipient. That would be the first one. He was a part of the General Army Republic, or the GAR. Really quickly, in reference to Old Tenent Presbyterian Church, George Washington, the general at that time, during the Revolutionary War, his private latrine is out back behind the actual church on top of the hill. It's kind of hidden because of the way the hill and the ground goes through the area of the church. So there's the church. Over here is George Washington, or General George Washington's latrine, which is behind a few trees, so you can't see it unless you actually know where to look. And then over here is where the monument is, with the columns and the cross beams and the steps and the beveled marker for the past, present, and future soldiers that after the 93 attack on the World Trade Center in New York City is at, that I had done the eagle thing that I wrote about in my first book. And there is the path that goes down to Neff Chapel, in the front part of Old Tenent Presbyterian Church is the path that goes to Old Scots Hall. Just in case there was the need of verification, because I obviously do not look like the way I did when I grew up in New Jersey. There's no doubt about that. Obviously, I was far too young to have any tattoos or the haircut that I have. And then, obviously, I don't look like what I did when I was going through confirmation class at all, but I did have braces on my teeth. And ironically, for my confirmation, I had black and white rubber bands that went around my braces. And I rotated the colors, black, white, black, white, black, white. Irony. After a blog journal thing that I recently wrote in the Ornery PSA. And had a heart shape, high collar, flowy sleeve dress, fitted, kind of flowy, and buttoned down for my confirmation dress. If there happened to be any pictures of that. Oh, and there was embroidery around the collar. It's kind of weird because if you really think about the way that collar was for that dress, it kind of almost looks like the Marine Corps dress blue collar for that particular dress. The irony of that. What a weird little coinky dink I just remembered. But anyway, so, going back to reading. Upon returning to the rental house, I turned on the television in the room that I had been kept in, ironically at the foot of the bed that Jesse Leroy Hoover Jr. Slept in. Irony, those threats I received for years. that nobody believed me about at the time and claimed that I was being overdramatic. Though I had thought of doing something similar to what I created before when I was in New Jersey going through my confirmation class, I had forgotten a bunch because of my Palm Sunday 2000 head injury, though I had taken the 2 electives during the course. The first course, everybody took photography, and a really large class that I was a part of. It wasn't an offense towards all of the other females and males in the class. I just really didn't want to be around as me. So I had asked what was the, I said, so similar to when I joined the Army in a way. So when I went through confirmation class and found out that everybody was taking photography, I was like, so what is the elective that has the least amount of people in it, or like nobody at all, and I could be by myself and the only person in the class? And the person who was doing the electives, I think it was Pastor Mackenzie, who ironically was a chaplain in the United States of America's Army branch of the Armed Forces, had said that it was the elective for the historical and spiritual gravestone rubbing to do it properly without causing any problems. And I jumped at the chance to do that. And during that elective, as I was learning about the stones, the differences between the original Death Angel compared to the fluffified version known as cherubs, which is short for cherubim, because as time went on, after the initial settlers showed up to what is now the United States of America, the generations started getting scared of the original Death Angel. And so to make like the fluffier ones happy, they started using cherubs, which made no sense, because if anybody has read the older, specifically the Old Testament, also known as the Torah, combined with the Quran, just throwing that out there, cherubs are demonic spawn. They are cute-faced, pretty, to make like... So the history behind cherubim, or cherubs, is that they have pretty faces. And it is the equivalent of the sirens in the ocean that essentially lure men to their death. Because the cherubim, or cherubs for short, they look prettier. They're more acceptable. And again, ironically, they're demonic spawn. And then, you know, if you take into the weird little coinky-dink in reference to my Medal of Honor art project, and the cherubim ones messing with my Medal of Honor art project, if there was anybody who doubted that those who messed with my Medal of Honor art project, not in a good way, but in the cherubim type of way, you are possessed. Period. And end of story. Cherubim. Then there are the compassionate, honorable, and righteous ones that are not possessed, but you cherubim are, and you are married to my dead ex-husband, and irony of ironies, weird little coinky-dink, I believe there is a chapter in Finding a Silver Lining where I think I called it the deal with the devil because of how my dead ex-husband was and turned out to be. And so for any cherubim ones that messed with my Medal of Honor art project, they could attempt to deny it. They could attempt to try to ignore it, but I can't lie. So there's that. And, you know, as the only executrix. And yes, I do know how to do exorcisms. And I'm the only one who can do an exorcism of that issue. So, no, cherubim, I will not exorcise you. And no, I will never divorce you from your spiritual husband. Ever. At all. Not gonna happen. And as a real quick side note before going into another one, in reference to, I don't know if other people have made pacts. I know there are different types of pacts that are made. And so the first pact that I had ever made would be when I was a child back in New Jersey. And my friend, Damien, not the devil, but his name actually was Damien. He had died when we were in 8th grade. And his father was driving a black BMW, slipped on a patch of black ice. Irony, cactus jack, he landed on a patch of cactus. And his father died immediately on impact because of the way the airbags deployed. And it was just such a brunt force, but also partially the engine had pushed inward. So that was another aspect as to why he died. Damien, on the other hand, had been in a coma for a while, and when I was in a class with someone, I had leaned over right after the announcement was made on the PA system, and I said, I really hope that if his mom has to choose, that she doesn't actually have to make that choice. And I think it was Paul. And Paul had asked me, what do you mean? Like, why are you saying that? How do you know Damien? And I said, if you knew. I said that if it ever had to be where his mom had to make the choice whether to pull the plug or try to keep going, I hope that Damien will not make his mom make that choice. And then his mom actually was asked, because of the health insurance at the time, for life support. And before she had to make that choice, Damien's spirit went on. And he and I had a pact way back when, like before we started in 2 different elementary schools. He went to Robertsville Elementary School, I went to Asher Holmes Elementary School. So there was that pact. And then there was the pact before the first separation from my now dead ex-husband. He wanted to do a ritual. I warned him that he should rethink that because he wouldn't like the outcome. And he wouldn't believe me if I told him. Which he didn't believe me when it came to that time, and he made the pact. And then, he died, obviously, and he re-promised his pact to me as an oath later on, just as he was confessing to the amount of times he cheated on me with a bunch of different females, claiming bullshit. But anyway, and that includes my biological sister. Then there was a different pact. So that's a total of 3 pacts so far, right? Then there was a different pact. Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., had wanted to do a ritual before the final separation. And I said, I recommend you rethink wanting to do this ritual. Cactus Jack said, oh, what's the worst that can happen? I said, there's a lot of things that you don't know and that you will never understand unless you do this pact. I recommend you don't do it. Highly recommend it. Because if you go through with making this pact, you will not be able to break it ever. He thought he knew better than me. And in the backyard of the San Antonio house, where one of the oak trees that I had cut down by myself did that little ritual, and he made that pact. And then the fifth pact, which was in between the two pacts from my dead ex-husband, was with the Jade Wolf Coven. Jamie, the starter of the Jade Wolf Coven in Seguin, set up a time for the coven to do a ritual. And during the ritual, after I created the circle, after I did all of the callings, all that sort of stuff, Christine, or Sissy Prissy Chrissy, wanted to do a blood pact. And I said, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't want to do that. She wouldn't stop whining. I looked at Jamie and I said, I have a blood blister because of where I had accidentally hit my hand when using a crowbar to remove the T-molding for the carpet to replace with wood laminate flooring. That is the only way I am willing to do a blood pact with you, is with dead blood. Sissy Prissy Chrissy, also known as Christine, was like, that sounds great! Jamie shrugged her shoulders. I guess we could do that. I was like, that's the only way I'll do a blood pact with you, is if you and your coven accept the dead blood from me. So, after sanitizing the needle that they shared, like without sanitizing it, it was really weird. Which they were all surprised that I was like, I held the needle, I put it in the candle flame, and they were like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm not about to do any bloodborne stuff. I don't think so. So, no. I know better. And so I did. I held the needle there for probably about 30, maybe 40 seconds to make sure it was nice and hot and sanitized. And then just punctured the blood blister, squeezed that dead blood in there, and so there's that. The irony of that blood pact being between the ritual between my now dead ex-husband and then my now dead ex-husband, same thing. I did warn them each time, all of them. Although Damien and I, we came up with that together. So, there is that. But in reference to the confirmation class, The irony of that is when I went to the MEP station, really, really, really mind screwed the guy after taking my ass bath. He sat me down in the room and he was just like, so, what job do you want in the Army? I said, I could do infantry. I know I could do infantry. And he looked at me and he's like, that's cute. And I said, what do you mean that's cute? And he said, infantry is only for males. I was like, huh? So what? And like, I mean, it's a big deal. Like, why are females, like, females are just as capable. There are certain issues that go along with it, but, you know, females are capable. And he said, well, okay, you're missing something between your legs. And I said, well, we're in Chicago. There is a whole bunch of stores that I could just walk into, pick one of those up, no problem. And he was like, oh my God, no. And I was like, oh my God, yes. Yes. And he was like, okay, how about another job? Why would you want to do infantry though? Oh my God. And I was like, well, you know, I mean, I know what's going to happen as far as certain things. I had this dream years ago, and only half of it came to be, which was the 1993 attack on the World Trade Center. And so I know that the other part of that is going to happen, and I can't let that full dream come to be in reference to the amount that I saw. And by all accounts, what I saw in that dream did not happen in the fullest form. By all accounts, because it was, in my dream, the Twin Towers were first, and then the Liberty Bell, and then all five sides of the Pentagon, and the White House, and the Empire State Building. A few other buildings. So it didn't happen the way I dreamt, but I had to be in the military in order to do something. And so I explained that to him. And he was like, okay, oh my God. And I was like, so if I can't be infantry, can I choose another job? And he said, yeah, please do. Oh, God. And I was just like, so what about cavalry? And he goes, no, you can't be in cavalry. You can't pick up a freaking tank shell. I looked at him and I was like, what do you mean a tank shell? Cavalry is horses. And he looked at me, he was like, oh my God, cavalry is tanks. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, you'd be a tanker if you were in tanks, not cavalry. Cavalry has to do with horses. Duh. And he just looked at me and he's like, oh my God, please pick another job. And I was like, okay, well, what about combat arms, where like I can just like handle firearms, no problem. And just sharpshooting, any of that. And he was like, and he turned around and he was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I was just like, what's the big deal? Like, why can't I? And he was like, so we're not gonna go any further with this because you're just labeling like stuff you aren't allowed to do. And I was like, why? And he goes, again, because of that. You can't go to the store. You cannot. It's like, ugh, fine. I won't go to the store then. And so he pulled up, like, on the screen, like, a bunch of different jobs. And I was like, I'll do logistics. And he goes, don't you want to see the other? Nope. I want logistics. And he said, okay, there are some really cool jobs. And I was like, yeah, no, logistics. Okay, now you went from infantry to cavalry to combat arms. I gotta know. Why would you want logistics? It's kind of like opposite end of the spectrum. And I said, because in logistics, if needed, I can move quickly. And so if ever under attack, I would be able to get all of the supplies squared away, be able to take care of the paperwork, no problem, get the guys what they need, not being sexist, just it's an East Coast term, get the guys what they need, and I'll, handle the paperwork as needed. If they need extra MREs, I'll get them MREs. If they need extra ammo, I'll get them extra ammo. I can move really quickly. Doesn't matter where on the base I'd be stationed. Just there. Here you go. Boom. I'm ready. Closest to the front line because that's where they usually attack. I shouldn't know that. Shouldn't have known that when I was 17, now that I think about it. A little late now, because I'm a little older than 17, biologically. And, well, technically. But anyway, I could handle that. Plus, being in logistics, I can be stationed anywhere. I could go to, like, the most secret places and, like, make sure shit got handled. And he was like, so before I approve you for being in that job, I gotta talk to some people, so can you go out in the waiting room and let me make a few phone calls, and then, I'll let you know whether you can have the logistics job. Okay. Sure. Sergeant. Excuse me? You are a sergeant, right? Yeah. Did you? Oh, I studied rank before I got in. Anyway. Because I was in the DEP program, Delayed Entry Program. So I went out, sat in the waiting room. Irony on that too, still. And then went back in and, because, wanted to be the first female come in. And so I'm going to go back to that. So upon returning to the rental house, I turned on the television in the room that I'd been kept in, and then the news showed another forest fire in the state of California, and the sensations that I had when in Calvary Cemetery had overcame my thoughts in reference to that GAR Medal of Honor recipient. And what occurred, I ran out of my room, and though my now ex-boyfriend, Jesse, anytime I left the room, he always glared at me. And I explained what I thought of in like a more full sort of way, and Jesse just rolled his eyes at me and said it was a stupid idea. So then I ran upstairs to tell my son about it because of where I was kept, and I tried to explain it to him, and he just was like, Mom, I don't understand. Like, it sounds like a cool project, but I I don't get it. It's like, okay, I'll just go and do it and I'll show you. And then when I was done with the first portions of it, James just looked at my Medal of Honor art project and was like, oh my God, Mom. Mom, that's your art project? Yeah. What do you think? Do you like it? He just kind of looked at my Medal of Honor art project when it was encased in the glass. And I was like, what do you think? Do you like it? Do you think it looks good? And he was just, oh, my God, Mom. Mom, yes? What do you think? Oh, my God. So I'm going to go to church this week. Oh, you know you can go to church. That's perfectly fine. Tell Miss Loretta I said hi. Ask her if I need to give you anything to go to church. Oh my God, Mom, no, I think we're good. I think that the church is good. Oh my God, Mom. And I was just, okay. And Jesse really wasn't happy with it. And so I went back to my room later on. But reference to my Medal of Honor art project, I took a break from typing because I was using a typewriter at first because using technology in Washington State was so painful. So painful. And then after what happened at Best Buy in Portland, and the Geek Squad guy being like, oh, you want to be a part of an experiment? No, I don't. I don't want to be a part of an experiment. I've been a guinea pig enough, like for the military of the United States of America. Not gonna happen because I told him about the head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, and then like a whole bunch of technology devices went off, and like Jesse had my son take me out to the car while he spoke with the Geek Squad guy. And then enrolled in ITG Tech after speaking with that guy. Cherubim. But anyway, I was excited about my Medal of Honor art project. And I already finished writing the first 2 books, and I was already in the process of finishing up the second book of the children's series. I had started the Failsafe book, and I had already finished the first book in the Paroxysm of the Lotus series by that point. Did not know about certain legalities and hence being back in the state of Texas. And, I did, go to the FBI, in San Antonio. The other day I mailed the books, all of them, to state of Texas for religious organization stuff. And then I also mailed, from Amazon I had books mailed to the United States of America. Hold on. Get there from the United States of America. Although I sent the first 2 books to Mr. Donald Trump and Miss Melania and Junior. It's so cute. It's so cute. Donald Trump Jr. is so cute. I have such a huge crush on him. But anyway, I didn't know what he looked like at the time. And then, Miss Ivanka and Eric and Miss Tiffany and Bear. Oh, he's going to be so handsome when he grows up. He's going to be so handsome when he grows up. And then, but yeah, so recently the modern day book was sent to them, as well as the scuba diving books. And then I mailed a whole bunch of the original books back in 2014, as well as 2015, and a few in 2016. And recently mailed some of the original books to different areas, including Angel Moroni's Church, Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, founded by Reverend Joseph Smith. And then okay, so obviously I'll end this video on this one. So back in Old Tenent Presbyterian Church, there was a point in time where they had a meeting of all of the deacons, all of the trustees, all of the board, different congregant members, etc. I was too old to go to the nursery. I don't know what year it was, but I had to stay in the church. And so Pastor Mackenzie was like, so we're going to discuss the funding to put a basement in to Old Tenent Presbyterian Church. And Pastor Mackenzie! And he goes, what, Susan? And I was like, isn't the original pastor of the church buried underneath the center aisle of the church on the way to the pulpit? And everybody in the building started laughing at me, with the exception of a few. And I was like, I'm just saying, Pastor Mackenzie, the original founders of Old Tenent Presbyterian Church put him there. It was General George Washington who had said he needed to go there during the Revolutionary War because of the congregants being afraid of the British desecrating his marker and grave. And I was told that was an old wives' tale. And I was like, no, Pastor Mackenzie. Everybody that has seen me walk over the center aisle, they make fun of me because I walk weird, on my tippy toes, and walk around where the one area is, because there's a little divot, like right where the pastor is. And they were like, oh, that's just an old wives' tale. Well, they didn't listen to me. They approved the funding, and then the construction company had to stop because they came across a wooden box. So there was another meeting. And, Pastor Mackenzie was like, so, do we remove it? And Pastor Mackenzie looks at me, what, Susan? He's like, remember what I said? Remember how I was like, so, Pastor, you said it was an old wives' tale, but it's not. It could be the casket of the original pastor of the church. Like I said, that you told me was an old wives' tale. That it's right. Susan, you're just a child. You don't understand. I'm just saying, Pastor Mackenzie, I'm just going to throw this out there. What if hypothetically it's not an old wives' tale and you should listen to me and not remove it? We have to take a meeting. Fine. So everybody voted, and they wound up agreeing that they should remove the casket. And irony in Washington State. And so surprise, surprise, they, pull out the casket and it was in the shape of the old caskets from that time, that freaking like weird shape of a coffin from that time, not the rectangle that it is now. And I'm like, hey, what are you guys gonna do? And they were like, oh, we're gonna open it. Well, don't you think that like the fact that it's in the shape of a coffin and there's like all these inscriptions all around the outside, don't you think you should just like stop and leave it there? Go put it back in, leave it alone. Just build a wall around it and like put a little plaque, just leave it alone. No, we're gonna open the casket because what's the wish? I have a few ideas. Oh, Susan, you're just a child. I have, like, I'm just gonna throw this out there. You remember how, like, in the meeting, you're like, I did know myself. And then, here we are, and then, what's hey. Just a bunch of inscriptions, like, all around the casket. Yeah, Susan, it's just an old wives' tale. It's literally in the shape of a coffin. Don't you think you could just, like, put it back in where, like, the dirt didn't even move? Like, you could just put it right back in there. You don't have to dig any, like, rectangle for it to fit. You can just, like, put it back in. Nope, Susan, we're gonna open it to make sure that the coffin-shaped box is actually a coffin. What? Susan, you're just a child. You don't understand. Okay, can I just do a quick little walk around so I can look at like all the different angles of this? Fine, go ahead. We have to go get the tools anyway. Okay, well, I'm going to do a few circles around this thing because I want to make sure I get every single really, you people think that this is a good idea. Okay, so then while Mr. Burke ran down to the garage behind old Neff Chapel, I go run around the irony of the Vandenberg. Look at the inscriptions. Etched in wood. Kind of ironic that I wound up posting a picture on Twitter of a certain area of Temple Bethel. And so, they get the thing and they pop that open and I'm like, see? And, well, okay, hold on. After, like, the dust came out and, like, the weird smells and stuff like that. Surprise! There was a freaking skeleton holding onto a Bible. I mean, it literally said Bible on the outside of the book. And there's a whole bunch of inscriptions on the inside as well. But looked at all those, and I was like, so now that you verified that it's he's in a pastor's robe. It's a little decayed, but, can you just close it and put it back? No. No, Susan, you're just being a child. Really? Really? Coffin-shaped box. You opened it. And then there's the skeleton holding on to a big little says Bible. And you go want to still open that? Like, can you leave the Bible and the pastor so you can close it and put it back? No. Because I'm a child. Really? That's your excuse? Not common sense. Like, that's common sense? No, oh, okay. So they literally, because anybody who's done coroner work knows that they literally pried the Bible out of Pastor William Tenet's cold, dead hands. And in this regard, it said Bible. And then on the side, it said Bible. Or Holy Bible, either way. Then open it up. And on the first page was blank. And then to the second page was Pastor William Tenent and like a bunch of other words. And it was like, can you put it back? Can you give it back to him? Huh? No? You're gonna stand there reading the fucking Bible? You don't have one of your own? You can't just... No, you gotta go through the pages. Make sure it's Bible, even though on the outside it says Bible. I'll say Pastor William Tenent in there. And the dedicated time. And all that stuff with the years. And, no, it does. But you're still gonna look at it. Can't just put it back in his hands. No. That makes too much sense. Common sense is a superpower, apparently. Like, just put that back in his hands. And no? I never do that. No. Hey. Seems like it would be pretty simple to just put that Bible back in his hands, close that casket, put it back. No, we have to have another meeting? Oh. The fuck is wrong with you? And then I got in trouble in New Jersey for saying, what the fuck is wrong with you? Just gonna throw this out there. I don't think it takes a head injury now to figure out that was pretty fucking simple back then. But no. What do I know? I was just a child. And so, had to have another meeting while leaving the casket where it was. And then after the meeting, they approved to give him another casket instead of just leaving him in the one that he was in. And then doing exactly as I said, where they had to, dig out some of the dirt to be able to put the new one in. And then they didn't even give him his original Bible back. It was some bullshit. Irony on LegalZoom. And then, surprise. People started seeing apparitions. And one of them happened to really annoy one of the guys. So, irony on the tacky stuff, because so one day at church service, prayer requests, and one of the congregants rose his hand and he was just like, "Hey, Pastor McKenzie!" And Pastor McKenzie's like, "Yes." And he goes, "Why did I have to chase you around the church a whole bunch of times?" And Pastor McKenzie was like, "Well, what day was this?" He goes, "You know how we play jokes on each other?" And he's like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, the guy said he was down at Old Scots Hall, and he had seen Pastor Mackenzie's robe go around the corner, and he was like, oh, yeah, I gotta go talk with him anyway. So he went up the hill past the original death angels that were on the sides, and then the raised ones on the right side when going towards the church. And he started running around the church, and every time he turns the corner, he saw the robe turn the corner, and so the congregant continued, and then before he knew it, like several hours passed. And so he explained that to Pastor Mackenzie, and Pastor Mackenzie was like, I've been out of town all week, what do you mean? And the guy was like, no. And then several other congregants had said that that was what occurred. So, you know, and irony, Pastor Mackenzie was so excited for a moment to call on me. And yes, Susan, what do you have to say? See a child speaking. Don't want to interrupt the child, right? Pastor Mackenzie, yes. You remember? Remember that meeting? Which meeting, Susan? You remember that meeting where church was talking about putting in a basement? Oh my God. I'm just saying, do you remember that meeting where I was like, hey, Pastor Mackenzie, and you were like, oh, you're just a child, irony. What do you know? Irony. And then, you know, construction, have to have another meeting. You remember that meeting too, Pastor Mackenzie? And, oh my God, Susan, and just wondering, hypothetically speaking, you remember those meetings where I was like, hey, you really shouldn't do that because it's a really bad idea because you don't know what you're doing and you're going to release stuff that you shouldn't be releasing. Remember how I was like, hey, you know, and then you ripped the Bible out of his cold dead hands. You remember that and all that? Yes, Susan, what are you implying? Really? I gotta spell this out for you? Irony on words. Maybe. When I recommended you shouldn't do certain things, because, you know. Just a child? Remember that? What about it, Susan? Really? Could you just, you know, spit it out? Oh, okay. Well, maybe, hypothetically speaking, when I told you not to do it, and hypothetically speaking, when you told me I'm just a child, and hypothetically speaking, when you told me all this other garbage, you should have listened to me when I told you that that was the area where he was buried, instead of telling me that, oh, I'm just a child type of garbage, and then going and doing it, and then hypothetically another meeting, and another meeting, and another meeting, and then ripping the fucking Bible out of his cold dead hands. Hypothetically, that apparition that apparently more than one congregant has seen, hypothetically, wouldn't have happened. And maybe, hypothetically speaking, when I told you to keep him in the original casket, you should have listened. But since you didn't, I'm going to ask, did you at least get rid of the casket in the correct way? Because hypothetically speaking, if you didn't, kind of like how you gave him a new Bible, hypothetically speaking, you should have listened. Maybe. Just hypothetical. What do you think, Pastor Mackenzie? And at that point, every congregant was, with the exception of my biological parents, oh my God. Oh my God, what have we done? And it was like, hey, I kind of tried to warn you, and apparently, do you want me to fix it? Susan, what do you know? You're just a child. Really, Pastor Mackenzie? Really? After all that? Really? What do you know about ritual? I don't know. A few ideas. No, Susan, you're just a child. Really? By a show of hands. And then I got in trouble for that. But by a show of hands, how many of the congregants have seen the apparition that one guy said he saw? And every single one, even my biological parents, raised their hands going, yeah. So what do you have to say to that, Pastor Mackenzie? Susan, you're just a child. Well, I hope, Pastor Mackenzie and congregation, I hope that there is a day where people don't look at me like I'm some stupid little child, realize that I don't have my head up my... And at that point, I heard my biological father go, you're in church. Really? Really? Okay. You guys did what? And you want to say what about my words? Really? Oh, okay. But... And, actually listen to the words that come out of my mouth and take some suggestions and recommendations instead of, that. Because maybe, just maybe, I might have a couple good ideas to explain. Oh, that's enough, is what my biological father said. Really? And then I was warned, we could go out to the car, and I was like, all right, well, I'll shut my mouth then, because I don't want that conversation, so okay. For those of you who don't know what that means, we'll go out to the car, because, you're too young. Going out to the car means that you get your ass beat. Like, bad. Like, a conversation with your behind is not something that you want to hear or have. And so there was that anyway. But maybe, just maybe one day, that actually happened. Shall we say? I have a few ideas for that, but I want to have this particular broadcast, recording whatever. I'm going to throw that out there. So cherubim, when I did not invite you, and in Tacoma, when I found out because of CID, and them telling me to go to the Pentagon, contact them, as well as the Tacoma police telling me to contact the FBI. And I had warned that you should stop causing problems. Hypothetically speaking, maybe you shouldn't have messed with my Medal of Honor art project. Hypothetically. So since I cannot lie, I'll throw this out there. You, cherubim, are possessed. You, cherubim, are married to my dead ex-husband. And no, I will not divorce you, cherubim. I do understand and comprehend the compassionate, honorable, and righteous ones getting involved. But again, hypothetically speaking, if anybody at all was like, hey, no, you should not mess with her Medal of Honor art project, cherubim, maybe, hypothetically speaking, they knew not to mess with my Medal of Honor art project. Maybe? Kind of like I knew not to. But anyway, that's just a few pages. Have a good one.